Important question test and in-course question suggestion will be common for Honours third-year examination. Department of English Hons. Third-year test exam -2023 sub. Elizabethan and Jacobean drama marks. 80 time. 4 hours part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. 10 times 1 equals 10A. What is necromancy? B. What does the phrase, Achilles' heel, mean? C. What hinders the singing of the contract between Dr. Faustus and Lucifer? D. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. What is meant here? E. What 4 things did the witches show Macbeth? F. Who is the peerless dame of Greece? G. How do the 3 witches address Macbeth? H. Who is Portia? I. Give me my principles and let me go. Who made this remark? J. Who are the legacy hunters in Volpone? K. What gift does Voltor bring for Volpone? L. What is melodrama? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 4 times 5 equals 22. What do good angel and evil angel allegorize in the life of Dr. Faustus? 3. Why is Dr. Faustus compared to Icarus? 4. Comment on the significance of the dagger scene in Macbeth. 5. Comment on Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking scene. 6. Describe the trial scene in The Merchant of Venice. 7. What things does Volpone offer Celia to seduce her? 8. How do the evil-doers get their punishment at the end of Volpone? 9. Briefly describe the character of Bisola. Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10 times 5 equals 50. 10. What is the function of the comic senses of Dr. Faustus? 11. Comment on the dramatic significance of the last scene in Dr. Faustus. 12. How far is Lady Macbeth responsible for the tragic calamity in Macbeth? 13. To what extent do the witches influence Macbeth's decision and action? 14. Narrate the trial scene of The Merchant of Venice. 15. Justify Volpone as a beast fable. 16. Sketch the character of Mosca in the play Volpone. 17. Write on The Duchess of Malfi as a portrait of a corrupt society. Sub. 16th and 17th century poetry part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. Who is Lady Una? B. What did the monster era vomit? C. How does the poet rebuke the sun in the poem, The Sun Rising? D. What does the word valediction mean? E. What is Carpe Diem theme? F. What does the phrase, times winged charrow, signify? G. How is the lover's love begotten in The Definition of Love? H. Why does the poet name the poem, Easter Wings? I. How did the poet reply in response to calling, child? J. What is Leviathan? K. Who is the architect of Pandemonium? L. Why did Satan welcome hell as his abode? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. What is the significance of vomiting by the monster era? 3. Why is the conceit of twin compasses? 4. How were the Red Cross Night? 5. Why and how does the poet rebuke the sun in the poem, The Sun Rising? 6. How does Marvel combine passion and intellect in The Definition of Love? 7. What spiritual conflict does Herbert reveal in the poem The Collar? 8. Write a short note on Beelzebub. 9. Describe the building of the Pandemonium, the capital of hell. Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. What is the allegorical significance of the fight between the monster of error and the Red Cross Knight? 11. Write a discourse on Spencer's treatment of good and evil in The Fairy Queen, Book -1. 12. What is meant by conceit? Write a note on the use of conceit in John Donne's poems. 13. Write a critical appreciation on Marvell's poem, The His Coy Mistress. 14. Discuss Herbert's use of imagery in the poems you have studied. 15. Evaluate Herbert as a religious poet. 16. Write a note on the use of epic similes in Paradise Lost Book 1. 17. Do you consider Satan the hero of Paradise Lost Book? Arguments in favor of or against your answer. Sub. 17th and 18th century non-fictional prose part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. When, according to Bacon, should a man marry? B. Who was Pilate? C. What are the vices of all? Sub. 17th and 18th century non-fictional prose part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. When, according to Bacon, should a man marry? B. Who was Pilate? C. What are the vices of authority? According to Bacon. D. What is the aim of The Spectator? E. What is tithe? F. What is a catechizing day? G. Who inherited Sir Roger's property? H. Who are the metaphysical poets? I. Who is the father of criticism mentioned in the Life of Cowley? J. When and where did the East India Company set its trading posts in India? K. What is East India Charter? L. What were the East India Company's officials formerly called? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. Write a short note on Bacon's dispersed meditations. 3. Can the family life best contribute to the peaceful life? 4. Write a note on Sir Roger de Coverley. 5. Write a short note on Addison's humour. 6. What is the Davidice? 7. How does Johnson compare Cowley and Milton as poets? 8. Write in brief the nature of English rule in India. 9. What was the aim of the East India Bill? Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Discuss Francis Bacon as a moral and utilitarian philosopher based on your reading of his essays. 11. Write a note on Bacon's prose style with reference to his essays you have read. 12. Write a note on Addison as a social satirist. 13. Comment on Steele's art of characterization with reference to The Spectator's Club. 14. Comment on Johnson's views of metaphysical poetry in his The Life of Cowley. 15. What picture of the East India Company do you get from Burke's speech on the East India Bill? 16. How does Burke criticize Hastings and his lieutenants in his speech on the East India Bill? 17. What, according of Johnson, are Cowley's strength and limitations as a poet? Sub. Restoration and 18th Century Fiction Part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. Why is Orinoco famous for? B. How did Orinoco learn humanity? C. What is meant by cat with 9 tails? D. What were the things Crusoe had at the time of shipwreck? E. How long was Crusoe in Brazil with his plantation? F. Who was Friday? G. What advice did the lieutenant give to Tom? H. Whom did Miss Bridget marry in Tom Jones? I. Who was Sophia? J. Why were the immortals miserable? K. Mention the title of the third part of Gulliver's Travels. L. Where was Lagado situated? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. Describe Orinoco's encounter with the Num eel. 3. How did Oronco plan a slave revolt? 4. How did Crusoe reach England? 5. How was Tom Jones imprisoned? 6. What was Lady Bellaston's plan against Sophia? 7. How was the Queen impressed by Gulliver at the time of their meeting? 8. How did the Lilliputians educate their children? 9. What was a great surprise to Crusoe regarding his plantation in Brazil? Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Horrors of slavery is one of the themes of the novel, Orinoco. Discuss. 11. Sketch the character of Amoinda. 12. Is Crusoe a colonialist? Justify. 13. Friday serves a significant purpose in the novel, Robinson Crusoe. Discuss. 14. Comment on the plot construction of the novel Tom Jones. 15. Tom Jones is a faithful representation of mid-18th century England. Elucidate. 16. Swift was a great humanist in spite of his being a misanthropist. Substantiate. 17. How does Jonathan Swift satirize science in Gulliver's Travels? Sub. Restoration and 18th Century Poetry and Drama Part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. Whom does Israel's monorail stand for? B. What is a satire? C. What is Popish plot? D. What is Sir Wilful? E. What does the black box contain in The Way of the World? F. What is the name of Mrs. Fainall's first husband? G. Who rare salamander? H. What does the bag given by the goddess of spleen to Umbriel contain? I. Whom does Pope address as the Muse in The Rape of the Lock? J. By what name is Marlowe known at the Ladies' Club? K. Why does Tony take revenge on his mother? L. What is a masquerade? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. Why was Absalom unwilling to revolt against his father? 3. Evaluate The Way of the World as a comedy of manners. 4. Examine the significance of the title The Way of the World. 5. Comment on the character of Lady Wishfort. 6. Write down the significance of the title of the poem The Rape of the Lock. 7. Write a short note on Clarissa. 8. Write a short note on the comedy of intrigues. 9. Why did Hastings and Miss Neville plan to elope? Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Evaluate Dryden as a satirist in the light of his poem, Absalom and Achitophel. 11. Elaborate the significance of the proviso scene in The Way of the World. 12. How does Congreve satirize the contemporary aristocratic English society in The Way of the World? 13. Discuss Congreve's use of wit and humor in The Way of the World. 14. Comment on the moral of the poem, The Rape of the Lock. 15. Discuss Pops, The Rape of the Lock, as mock epic. 16. Compare and contrast the character of Marlowe and Hastings. 17. Comment on the theme of dual identities in She Stoops to Conquer. Sub. Victorian Poetry Part. A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. What type of poem is Locksley Hall? B. What is the glass of time? C. What happened to the men who ate the lotos at the land of the lotos eaters? F. Why did the sailors decide not to return home? G. Who was Enon? H. What is Tithonus afraid of? I. What does the phrase, serpentining beauty, suggest? J. How does the poem, Fra Lippo Lippi, end? K. Who is the speaker in the poem, The Last Ride Together? L. Why did the Duke dislike the Duchess? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. Who is the Oxford scholar Paul? 3. What does the scholar Gypsy symbolize? 4. What type of work is Dover Beach? 5. What is Arnold's view about truth? 6. What is the source of mankind's sorrow? 7. What is Tennyson's opinions about knowledge and wisdom? 8. Describe Andrea as a faultless painter. 9. Describe Browning's attacks on idealized art in Fra Lippo Lippi. Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Write a critical appreciation of Tennyson's poem, The Lotos Eaters. 11. How does Tennyson handle myth and legend in the poems you have read? 12. Comment on Browning's attitude to art and life as revealed in his poems. 13. Write a critical appreciation of the poem, Dover Beach. 14. What is elegy? Discuss Thersites as an elegy. 15. Describe Hopkins as a religious poet. 16. Write a note on the symbols used in Hopkins' poems. 17. Evaluate Robert Browning as a writer of dramatic monologues. Sub. Introduction to Literary Criticism, up to Romantic Period, Part A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. What is an epic? B. What is hymn? C. What is Gorbodic? D. How does Sidney prove that poets are not liars? E. Who was Stephen Gosson? F. What are, according to Dryden, are the faults of Shakespeare? G. What type of critic is Dr. Johnson? H. What is the difference between a poet and a common man? I. Why is preface to lyrical ballads called a romantic manifesto? J. What is imagination? K. What is willing suspension of disbelief? L. What is fancy? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. What is poetic truth? 3. What does Aristotle say about dramatic unities? 4. Why did Sidney write An Apology for Poetry? 5. What are Sidney's views on the capacity of English language? 6. Why is Shakespeare called the poet of nature by Johnson? 7. Why does Johnson prefer Shakespeare's comedies to tragedies? 8. Why was Wordsworth revolt against the 18th century poetry? 9. How does Coleridge oppose Wordsworth's idea of using meter and rhyme in poetry? Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Critically discuss Aristotle's theory of mimesis with reference to his Poetics. 11. Why does Aristotle mention plot as the soul of a tragedy? 12. Discuss Sidney's view on the antiquity and universality of poetry. 13. How does Sidney establish the superiority of poetry over history and philosophy in An Apology for Poetry? 14. Give your comment on Johnson as a critic of Shakespeare. 15. How does Johnson defend Shakespeare against the charge for the violation of the unities of time and place? 16. Discuss in detail about Wordsworth's views on the choice of the language and the subject of poetry. 17. How does Coleridge define prose, poetry and poem in Biographia Literaria? Discuss. Sup. Introduction to Literary Criticism, up to Romantic Period, Part A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. What is an epic? B. What is hymn? C. What is Gorbodic? D. How does Sidney prove that poets are not liars? E. Who was Stephen Gosson? F. What are, according to Dryden, are the faults of Shakespeare? G. What type of critic is Dr. Johnson? H. What is the difference between a poet and a common man? I. Why is preface to lyrical ballads called a romantic manifesto? J. What is imagination? K. What is willing suspension of disbelief? L. What is fancy? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. What is poetic truth? 3. What does Aristotle say about dramatic unities? 4. Why did Sidney write An Apology for Poetry? 5. What are Sidney's views on the capacity of English language? 6. Why is Shakespeare called the poet of nature by Johnson? 7. Why does Johnson prefer Shakespeare's comedies to tragedies? 8. Why was Wordsworth revolt against the 18th century poetry? 9. How does Coleridge oppose Wordsworth's idea of using meter and rhyme in poetry? Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. Critically discuss Aristotle's theory of mimesis with reference to his Poetics. 11. Why does Aristotle mention plot as the soul of a tragedy? 12. Discuss Sidney's view on the antiquity and universality of poetry. 13. How does Sidney establish the superiority of poetry over history and philosophy in An Apology for Poetry? 14. Give your comment on Johnson as a critic of Shakespeare. 15. How does Johnson defend Shakespeare against the charge for the violation of the unities of time and place? 16. Discuss in detail about Wordsworth's views on the choice of the language and the subject of poetry. 17. How does Coleridge define prose, poetry and poem in Biographia Literaria? Disc. Sub. Introduction to Linguistics Part A1. Answer any 10 questions. A. What is idiolect? B. What does TGG stand for? C. What are bilabial sounds? D. What are the monophthongs of English? E. What are acronyms? F. What is recursion? G. What is cohesion? H. What is semantics? I. What is psycholinguistics? J. Who is Noam Chomsky? K. What do you understand by caregiver speech? L. What is idiolect? Part B. Answer any 5 of the following questions. 2. What is language? 3. Why is linguistics considered as a science? 4. What are the branches of phonetics? 5. What is elision? Discuss some rules of elision. 6. What is allomorph? 7. Discuss syntagmatic and paradigmatic relations with examples. 8. What are the differences between acquisition and learning? 9. Show the difference between Creole and Pidgin. Part C. Answer any 5 questions. 10. To what extent can linguistics be considered as a science? 11. Evaluate Chomsky's major contributions to linguistics. 12. Describe cardinal vowels and show their positions through a diagram. 13. What is morphology? Classify the morphemes in detail. 14. What is pragmatics? How is pragmatics different from semantics? 15. What is IC analysis? Exemplify IC analysis through tree diagrams and determine its limitations. 16. Discuss the different stages of child language development. 17. What is dialect? How is non-standard dialect transformed into a standard one? In course exam sub Elizabethan and Jacobean drama 231101 A. Discuss Dr. Faustus as a Renaissance character. B. Do you think Volpone is a beast fable? A. Are the audience sympathetic to Dr. Faustus? Discuss in the context of the drama Dr. Faustus. B. The outlook of life of Volpone and the present world is the same. Discuss. Sub 16th and 17th century poetry 231103 A. What is the proposal of the lover to his beloved in the poem to his coy mistress? B. Pure love is never united, but impure love is united. Discuss. A. Critically discuss the 2 sonnets Batter My Heart and Death Be Not Proud of John Donne. B. Evaluate Andrew Marvell as a metaphysical poet based on the poems you have read. Sub 17th and 18th century non-fictional prose 231105 A. Unmarried men are best friends, best masters, best servants, but not always best subjects. Justify. B. Nuptial love maketh mankind. Friendly love's perfect it, but wanton love corrupt and embasseth it. Comment. A. How would you explain the fact that Bacon's essays never fail to attract readers? B. Discuss Francis Bacon as a moral and utilitarian philosopher based on your reading of his essays. Sub. Restoration and 18th Century Fiction 231107 A. How was Orinoco turned into a slave from a prince? B. How did Crusoe approach God for his sin of disobedience? A. Give an account of the major themes of Orinoco. B. Comment on the spiritual regeneration of Robinson Crusoe. Sub. Restoration and 18th Century Poetry and Drama 231109 A. How does Dryden satirize the contemporary English people in Absalom and Achitophel? B. Write down the significance of the title of the poem The Rape of the Lock. A. Evaluate Dryden as a satirist in the light of his poem Absalom and Achitophel. B. Comment on the moral of the poem The Rape of the Lock. Sub. Victorian Poetry, 231111. A. Andrea del Sarto, is a poem of marital tragedy. Elucidate this view. B. How does Arnold present the contrast between the life of the scholar gypsy and that of the modern man? A. Comment on Browning's attitude to art and life as revealed in his poems. B. Comment on the elegiac elements as found in Arnold's poems. Sub. Introduction to literary criticism, up to Romantic period. A. Discuss two types of imagination according to Coleridge. B. Poetry gives both learning and delight. Discuss. A. What arguments has Philip Sidney showed in his literary criticism, an apology for poetry on behalf of poetry? Discuss. B. Draw a comparative study between fancy and imagination in Biographia Literaria. Sub. Introduction to Linguistics, 231115. A. Discuss the difference between language, lang and parole. B. Discuss different varieties of sociolinguistics. A. Evaluate Chomsky's contributions to linguistics. B. Discuss the relationship between language and culture.